Verse 422. The far-going, the good wisdom, the law cloud, and the Tathagata-stage, they belong to the essence of Buddhahood, while the rest are taken up by the two vehicles. The previous few verses or so are concerned with the essence of Tathagatahood, whereas this verse is concerned with the essence of Buddhahood. The only difference between Buddhahood and Tathagatahood is the element of teaching. And the far-going, the good wisdom, the law cloud, these are 3 of the 10 bhumis. They're the 7th, 9th and 10th bhumi. And the Tathagata stage is mentioned just as the Buddha stage was mentioned in the previous verse. We can take them as more or less the same. We tend to get the bhumis, the 10 bhumis listed, and then the Buddha stage or the Tathagata stage as something beyond the bhumis. The Tathagata stage or the Buddha stage isn't something which comes at the end of the bhumis, even though it's listed at the end usually. The Tathagata stage is the beginning and the ending of spiritual practice, of enlightenment practice, of the bhumis. It feeds into the very first stage, which is the initial awakening. And the rest of the bhumis are consolidation of that. So the last 2 bhumis, the good wisdom and the law cloud, are concerned with teaching. These are the 9th and 10th bhumis. And I think I should say something about that. I've been a teacher of one sort or another for most of my life. It seems to be something that I'm inclined to do. And it might seem rather selfish of me, but it's not something that I'm driven to out of consideration for others. I've always found that teaching something is the best way to learn something. Once I've learnt something, I lose interest in teaching it. I've never been able to be a career teacher, teaching the same thing year in, year out. Once I've explored something at a certain level, then I want to move on. So for me, teaching is really a journey of exploration. And I would see those that are on the receiving end of my teaching as fellow explorers, fellow wayfarers. Let's look into this together. Let's explore it. Let's learn about it. And I think this is what applies here. It isn't that the first 8 bhumis are some kind of qualifying exam, some sort of teacher training program, and then the 9th and the 10th bhumis are about you going out with your credentials as a teacher and teaching those who don't know as much as you do. This is nonsense. This is nonsense. The 9th and 10th bhumis, concerned with teaching, are consolidation. When you start to teach, your own ignorance is laid bare, at least to yourself. When you think you understand something, and then you try to explain it to somebody else, or transmit it to somebody else, then you find that sometimes maybe you don't understand it very well at all. And this is very illuminating. And as part of what verse 420 called self-mastery. Because you start learning about your own limitations once again and working through them, going beyond them. You're developing new will bodies, new opportunities to once again return to fundamental insight. So that's the relevance of the last two bhumis, which are the 9th and the 10th bhumis. So we've got mentioned of the 7th bhumi, the far going, which also belongs to the essence of Buddhahood along with the 9th and the 10th. And why should this be? It's because the far going, or the gone afar, means that you've gone beyond any conventional understanding. And you're communicating afresh from your own insight. In other words, you're taking your cue from your own realization of how things really are, and not from the voluminous teachings of traditional understanding. And this is what's represented by the two vehicles. The other bhumis 1 to 6 and the 8th bhumi, seem to be relegated to the two vehicles. The two vehicles being the vehicle of the Shravakas, these are the traditional Buddhists, and the vehicle of the Pratchika Buddha. And this is the one who is adept at meditation, at the meditative absorptions, and is quite happy to abide in those. Now the 8th bhumi, the immovable, was covered in the previous verse. It's the essence of Tathagata-hood. This means that you're consolidated in your understanding. So I don't think we can relegate this to either of the two vehicles. And in fact, I don't think we should relegate any of the bhumis to either of the two vehicles. So I think perhaps the translation here is given the wrong emphasis. As I've pointed out before, the bhumis are really a description of enlightenment practice, and in this sense they are all about letting go of the two vehicles. They're all about developing original insight. However, it's a struggle. It's a struggle, or it can be a struggle. It can be a very difficult and at times perhaps impossible struggle. So you need help, and you might have to resort to conventional techniques, conventional teachings, conventional practices. So I think the sense here of the two vehicles is that they can still apply, because we have to use whatever means available in order to get by sometimes. And this might mean applying the conventional teachings on ethical practice, or doing formal meditations, or doing anything, whether it's hatha yoga practice or tai chi or anything which helps keep body, mind and soul together. There comes a point where enlightenment practice develops its own momentum, and that's what's represented by the later bhumis. Perhaps from the seventh bhumi onwards, this is when enlightenment practice has its own momentum and starts fueling itself. But until that point, we use whatever is helpful. And this point is reinforced in the next verse, which I'll leave till the next video.